Welcome to the Build a Life After Loss podcast, where we help you to build a life of purpose and joy. Our aim is to encourage your hope in the future and strengthen your confidence. I'm your host, Julie Clough, life coach and certified grief recovery specialist. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 48, Lessons Learned While Playing. First of all, have you ever started something and completely misjudged what it would take to do it? That's kind of what I did recently. So for the last month, I've been advertising an online support group that I was going to launch in October. But then as things have come together, I realized they're way more involved in doing that than I originally anticipated. And so we won't be launching in October, but we will be coming soon. So just kind of keep your eyes out for that. Keep your ears open for that. Get on our Facebook page, watch for that. That's going to happen sooner than later, but probably not in October, unfortunately. So that was just one of those flubs that I did. And we just, when we do something like that, when we think we're going to be able to do something one way and then it just doesn't turn out the way we expect, we can just pat ourselves on the back and say, good job for trying and move on. But it is coming. It will happen, but probably not in October. So I just wanted to let you know that right off the bat. That's what's happening. But the Salt Lake Grief Recovery Group is starting next Tuesday night, September 10th at 7 p.m. So if you're in the Salt Lake area or you know someone in the Salt Lake area, that's going to be in Sandy. And be sure and reach out to me and get more information about that because it's going to be a fantastic group. I'm super excited about that group that's starting. We do a lot of great work in that group and we really work through some things that, so it's super, super helpful because, people tell us we need to move on, but they don't tell us how. And that's what this group is all about. Let's do some action steps that can help us in our recovery process. So that is happening next Tuesday night. Now, the third thing I want to tell you about is I was traveling most of August. It was not the way things were supposed to happen, but that's kind of the way things happened. As you know, my father-in-law passed away, and so I ended up going to Florida early. I already had a trip to Florida planned, but I ended up going early for his funeral. And it was so great to be with the family and to enjoy that time together and hear some of the stories. Some stories are hard and some stories are, you're just grateful. But, even when someone passes away, sometimes all the memories aren't good. All of them aren't good, but most of them are. And so it was really, really fun to be with the family and to be there for the funeral. And I had the opportunity to accompany a couple people while they sang, which was fun, which I enjoyed doing. And it's a way for me to contribute and feel like I'm, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a way for me to be a part of the service. And I do appreciate being able to do that. So that was nice. But I already had a business conference in August in Florida. And anytime I come across a conference that I would like to go to anyway, that would benefit me, and it happens to be in Florida, I take advantage of that because I have so much family in Florida that then I can go down there for my business trip and then I can tack on a little bit of extra travel to spend time with my family. And so that's what I had planned to do. But then I ended up down there early and then I had my conference and then I went to spend some time with my daughter. So it was an interesting month of August. So I pre-recorded, I had done all these podcast episodes for August so that, cause I want to show up for you every single Wednesday. And that is always my goal, is to be here every Wednesday for you. But it feels a little weird to be back at the mic today because I just got back in town. And now this is actually Tuesday, September 3rd. Usually I don't tell you when I'm recording, but this is actually Tuesday, September 3rd. And I'm recording the episode for September 4th. And it feels good to be back. It feels so good to be here with you and to talk with you and And yeah, I'm just super excited. I'm excited to be here with you. As you know, our topics on the Build a Life After Loss podcast are a lot of times are about grief and recovery and coping and like, what do we do next and that kind of thing. But then we also talk about personal development. And so I wanted to share with you some thoughts that I had, oddly enough, while I was sitting on the beach in Florida. Isn't that funny? But I took some time while I was down there to spend some time with my daughter and her kids. And we went to the beach a couple of times while I was there. Unfortunately, I don't know what that beach is going to look like now because she lives in Fort Pierce and I was just there 2 weeks ago at the beach in Fort Pierce. And now they've had this hurricane that's hitting as we speak. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect the beach. But anyway, we were at this little family beach there and in Fort Pierce. And I love the beach because I grew up in Clearwater. I grew up in Clearwater, Florida. And so that's what I grew up. You know how some people, they grow up in the mountains and they love the mountains and they can't wait to get back to the mountains. But I love the mountains now too, but I love the beach. So it was fun to be there and to spend some time with them on the beach. And there were some things that I learned, interestingly enough, while I was sitting on the beach. And the first thing that came to mind was how much I enjoyed that life is enjoyed best by focusing on being there. And so often I find myself distracted. Like I'm somewhere, but I'm distracted because I'm getting a phone call or I'm getting text messages or I'm getting Facebook messages or whatever it is. Just a continuous barrage of all these different ways that people can reach us that aren't in the room with us, right? And so as I sat on the beach, I thought, wow, how enjoyable is this? Because I left my phone in the car. Even though it had my camera on it, I left my phone in the car and I just spent the time there. I wasn't focused on anything else. I allowed myself to be there without thinking about what work was waiting for me when I got back to the house or what I needed to do next week or, what my current deadlines were. I just enjoyed being there. And I made a commitment to myself that I wanted to share with you because I think it's a commitment that we could all make to ourselves. And that is a commitment to be there when we're somewhere. And I'm not great at it. And even since I sat there on the beach thinking, oh my goodness, this is amazing, I still am not really, really good at it. But it's something to me that's worth working on. And that's what I'm going to be working on. The second thing is that I learned at the beach was the whole experience can be fun. So that sounds crazy because you're thinking, of course, you're at the beach. Of course it's fun. Like there's no doubt that it was fun. But the kids had their little boogie boards and they were trying to learn how to boogie board on the waves. And if you haven't done that before, you have this it's like a foam board. It's shorter than a surfboard. And you get on the board and you hit, if you catch the wave just right, you can push off and kick and allow the wave to you ride in on the wave. So you're riding in on the wave on your stomach on the boogie board. Okay. So if you haven't ever done that before, that's a little bit of an explanation of what it looks like. But the kids were trying to learn, they were young and they were trying to learn how to boogie board and they weren't always getting it right. They were missing the wave or they were pushing off too late or they were pushing off too early and they weren't always getting it right. And sometimes they'd have the board sitting there in front of them and they'd get hit with a wave and it would just knock them down. They weren't even trying to ride the wave. They were just standing there with their board and just because the way they were standing there and the board and it would just knock them down. But you know what? The whole thing can be fun. The whole thing can be fun. Just instead of focusing on, hey, this wave just knocked me down, we focus on like where we are. Isn't it amazing to be sitting here at the beach or what we're doing or the next time I'm going to get it. So I think there's always something to be grateful for, something to experience in trying new things. Even trying new things, we can have fun. The next thing that came to mind is experimenting is great. Experimenting is great. And that's what I was watching the kids do. They were experimenting with these boogie boards. They hadn't been doing it that long. They actually, I'm originally from Florida. My daughter was born in Florida. My oldest 4 children actually were all born in Florida, in the same town where my sister and my brothers were born. So we're from Florida, but we moved to Texas a little while. I guess my oldest daughter was 9 when we moved to Texas. Anyway, my oldest daughter and her family were living in Idaho. They had been out in Idaho, or husband had gone to Boise State, and then they'd moved down to Florida. So her kids weren't used to being on the beach a lot. And so this is all new experiences for them. And it was fun to watch them experimenting with things, experimenting with the boogie boards, experimenting with building sandcastles, just experimenting. Experimenting is great. Trying new things is great. The 4th thing that I learned was about continuously building and rebuilding, and that nothing is permanent, and that's okay. So if you've ever been on the beach and you've ever built a sandcastle, if you're building a sandcastle with kids, you know that there's a certain group of kids that are older, more mature, and they love the building part. And they will take the sand and they'll put them in the little castle molds, and they'll create this sandcastle, or create a drip sandcastle. If you don't know what that is, you just let the sand drip and it creates this really interesting, drippy looking tower. So as they built it, then there's always these kids that are too young to understand the building process, and they just want to go around stepping on everything that's been built. So you've got the older kids creating the castle, you got the younger kids tearing it down. But then you also, depending on where you build it, there's this sweet spot of where to build a sandcastle. And so I know, isn't this funny? But when you build a sandcastle, if you want to be kind of in damp sand, because dry sand does not build a sandcastle. If you try to take dry sand and you put it in a form and you put it upside down, the dry sand just falls apart. It doesn't hold its shape. It's the water that allows it to hold its shape. So you got to be in damp sand. You got to be in kind of this area where the water has been. And when you're in the area where it's wet, chances are that eventually the tide's going to start coming up again, and it may just wash right over where you built your sandcastle. So we've got people, we've got circumstances that can come along and destroy or damage what we've done. Nothing is permanent when we build things, when we rebuild things, nothing's permanent, and that's okay. And we just rebuild, and we enjoy the process of building, and we recognize that nothing is permanent. We have this law of entropy. We have to constantly be, you think about, so like buying a house. You buy a house and you've got this beautiful new house, but after a few years, you have to start doing repairs. Sometimes more often than that. One of the first things that goes is a light bulb, right? So you have to replace the light bulb. If you just build a house and walk away from it and come back in 5 years, it's not going to be the same place that it was. And so it's part of life, building and rebuilding and keeping up with things and trying to keep things in order. Because the law of entropy says that it's a natural law that things go out of order. And so it's a natural process for us as humans to be constantly putting things in order. Think about your kitchen. You put it in order, and then someone comes in to make a meal and it's out of order again. Or you go in to make a meal and it's out of order again. So we're in this constant this constant rotation of keeping things in order. And I think it's so funny, isn't it, that I don't know why our brains do this, but for some reason we think that once we put something in order, that it's just going to stay there. And it's almost like we get upset that it doesn't stay there. And it's so funny that we do this, but I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'll put my house in order and then I'll be thinking, oh my goodness, now it's a mess again because of this or that, people came over or something happened and it's a mess again. And why do I bother getting upset about that? Why do we bother? This is just part of life. It's just part of life. And it's part of, and really it's something that we can enjoy. Doesn't it feel good to put things in order? So when things get out of order, we have an opportunity to put it back in order and it just feels good. And number 5 was enjoying the process. Why do we take things so seriously? Like even going to the beach has its element of work. It has its element of work, even though it's a fun activity. And I'm talking about a fun activity. Sometimes I think that's fun. I mean, I think it's fun to take an activity that's kind of out of the norm or that we wouldn't normally do and think of it in terms of the things that we do normally do. And there's an element of work to going to the beach, especially when you go with 4 grandchildren. There's an element of work, right? They all had to get ready. We had to get them all out to the car. We had to get them strapped into car seats. We had to bring all the stuff that we needed, chairs and boogie boards and building material, the shovels and the pails and all that stuff and the sunscreen, all that stuff had to be gathered up and brought with us. And then we had to drag it all down to the beach, onto the beach. And then we had to drag it all back out to the parking lot, back to the car. And in between, we had to shower it all down and clean it all up so we could get in the car, clean ourselves up, clean the bag of toys up, clean the boogie board, all that stuff. It made a mess. And so there's an element of work to even having fun. So why can't we look at our work and think about the fun that we can create in our work? How can you make what you do for work, what you consider your work, whether that's, you're at home and you're taking care of your home and your family, or if you're at a job, or if you have a combination of those things, how can we look at our work and have more fun? Why do we make things so serious? How can we loosen up where we can? I mean, there's certain elements of life, and certainly if you've experienced a loss, you know this really well. There's certain aspects of life that are just serious. They're just serious. So let's look at every possibility that we can to loosen up, to have some fun, to enjoy ourselves. So that was the message I wanted to bring to you today. It was to look at things that we can do to have more fun. So number 1, some of these lessons, again, I'm just going to review them real quick. So the first lesson was I enjoyed it best by focusing on being there. So the first lesson was being there, not focusing on anything else but where we are. Sometimes we call that mindfulness. Number 2, the whole experience can be fun. So even the challenging things, in some cases, we can make them fun. Number 3, experimenting is great. Where can we experiment? Where can we try new things? Number 4, continuously building and rebuilding. It's part of life. Nothing is permanent, and that's okay. Number 5, enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. Have some fun. Try not to make things so serious. I actually just listened to a coach call And it was a coach call where some people would call in and the coach would coach them on different things. And it was one of the things that came up on that call was the woman just was not, there were certain aspects of her business that she was enjoying, but there were parts of it that she was really despising, and she was making it all so serious. And so the coach said to her, why are you making it all so serious? Why is it serious? Just have fun. Have fun. So I think it's a great lesson. I really do think it's a good lesson. And as I said, I just love being with you. So I'm excited to be with you here today. Okay, 2 reminders again. First, in Salt Lake area, we do have our Grief Recovery group starting next Tuesday, September 10th in Sandy. I only do these twice a year, and it's not too late. So if you know of anybody in the Salt Lake area that you think could benefit from an action program that is designed to help you move beyond death, divorce, and other losses such as health, career, and faith, please let me know. Just reach out at Julie at buildalifeafterloss.com and we will get you reserved for that, or your friend reserved for that. Also, if you love this podcast, which I just love you guys being here, and if you love this podcast, will you share it with a friend? This is how we get the message out to others and we bring some light and hope to the world. Love you guys. Love you. Have a wonderful week. I believe in you. Bye.